All right, ladies and gentlemen, the time is 1:30. And we got a brand new chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen. So, let's go ahead and get the formalities out of the way, shall we? Yo, peoples! Kyushu92 here, and welcome back to another live reading of Jujutsu Kaisen. We had an absolutely mesmerizing chapter of One Piece. I will not go into detail, but we had an absolutely monumentally awesome chapter of One Piece, and I honestly looking forward to seeing what this news chapter of Jujutsu is going to give to us. Hopefully it's on par, but if it isn't, that's fine, because One Piece is always a hard one to top. So, let's get started with the news chapter, chapter 225. Inhuman Makyo Shinjuku Showdown Part 3. Cause we need to pick up to where Gojo was facing off against Sukuna. Cdez, it's good to see you as always. Yes, I cleaned up. I had to get rid of that Brillo pad I had sitting up on my head. I had to get rid of that woolly mammoth stuff that was up here, because I prefer to have a shaved head and be clean. But Chapter 225, did I say 255? 225, Inhuman Makyo Shinjuku Showdown Part 3. And we got everyone watching as Gojo goes on and faces off against Sukuna. That includes Yuji and company. Gojo has the limitless curse technique, which makes him inviolable. And Sukuna has tried neutralizing it with domain amplification. Domain amplification. And Choso's there with them as well. And then Yuta speaks up. It was in Mekamaru's footage. A special grade cursed spirit used it against Gojo Sensei's limitless curse technique in Shibuya. It neutralizes Gojo's domain. But how? It's like my simple domain, only more developed. It neutralizes by using a domain that doesn't grant a curse technique in order to pour an opponent's curse technique into the empty space. Kusakabe, can you do that? Of course. Of course. Not. And then we have the lawyer guy that's there as well. But I do have a sense of how it works. Kusakabe, can you do that? Of course not. But I do have a sense of how it works. And then Hanakurusu speaks up. Well, the angel does. The drawback to amplification is that you can't use it together with an innate domain. It appears that Sukuna is no exception. Supposing there's a way for Sukuna to defeat the limitless curse technique aside from amplification. Gojo, supposing there's a way for Sukuna to defeat the limitless curse technique aside from amplification, Gojo will lose. And then Panda speaks up. Does that mean he's practically without a curse technique and still holding his own against Satoru? And then Mai speaks up. Well, Mai speaks up. If that's the case, why isn't Sukuna expanding a domain? Using a curse technique is difficult immediately after domain expansion. Then shouldn't Sukuna get into a clash of domains with Gojo? And then Kirawa speaks up. You make it sound simple, but depending on the result, the fight would be over. Wouldn't that be a good thing? You're right. Wouldn't that be a good thing? You're right, so then why? And then Yuji speaks up. Can a domain's guaranteed hit even pierce Satoru's curse technique? He hinted it would that time a cursed spirit's domain swallowed us. And this speaks back to the very first use of domain expansion when Gojo was going up against Jogo. Wow, that's a callback to like the beginning of the series. And then we have Uyui speaking up. Could it be that Sukuna suspects he can't beat Gojo in a domain clash? And then Shoko speaks up. Given Gojo's devious personality and six eyes, I doubt he'd fail to notice that. And if he suspected it, he'd have deployed his domain first. And then everyone this is just a talky chapter right now. Then Choso speaks up. Then perhaps there won't be a domain battle. Based on what Inumaki and Yuji said, I don't think Sukuna closes barriers when opening domains. Huh? Is that impossible? Isn't that impossible? Yes, it is. And this cuts to the lightning curse user that we saw earlier that I incorrectly thought was like a woman at first. Yes, it is. It's impossible. At least I think it is. So it's like totally impossible? Miwa, toss me some water. Okay, here you go. Why'd you do that? And it shows that And it shows that he just, it shows that she tosses the water, but he tosses a bottle and he tosses it back. Why'd you do that?
Huh? You told me to!
I asked for water. I don't need the bottle.
Huh?
And then Miwa just thinks about it, and she opens the bottle and she just splashes the water in Kusakabe's face. And then he just glares at her. And then Mei speaks up.
That's what it's like to open a domain without closing a barrier.
Is it possible? Is it possible to hold water without a vessel?
Oh wait, is it possible to hold water without a vessel? Can you paint a picture in the air without a canvas? Do flowers bloom from a seed without root, leaf, or stem?
And then Maki speaks up.
It'd be like running software without hardware. Anyway, it's impossible. Megumi's unfinished domain didn't shut the barrier.
And then Kusakabe speaks. This is a really exposition heavy chapter. I heard about something like that before promotion assessment, but that involved using buildings and existing barriers as external shells. This is on a far higher level.
But,
and then Choso speaks up. But Noritoshi Kamo, Kenjaku did it.
Huh?
Tsukumo resisted with simple domain. Meanwhile, Tengen dispelled the domain with a barrier technique from outside. The simple domain got stripped away, but if Tsukumo had been holding an open domain...
I doubt a clash of domains would result, because it'd amount to a clash with the barrier's outer shell. But it probably resulted in a struggle involving the curse technique's guaranteed hits inside Yuki's domain. A struggle?
A struggle between what?
I don't know. Maybe guaranteed hits?
This is Mei. No. Miwa. I remember her name. It's Miwa. Lord Jesus, I'm going to get corrected by people who write out comments before I even correct myself. Her name is Miwa. It's not Mei. It's Miwa. There's only one Mei, and it's Mei. It's Miwa. Miwa says,
maybe guaranteed hits? Guaranteed hits come with the barriers, so it'd have to be the barriers.
And then there's so much talking in this chapter! There's so much talking! Everyone's talking!
We're talking about domains like they're no big deal, but they eat up time.
Well, wait, this is the other guy, the dude with the beanie on his head. We're talking about domains like they're no big deal, but they eat up tons of cursed energy, right? So you can't do them lightly.
Fish flakes.
Inumaki's right. Gojo-sensei would never run out of cursed energy. Seriously, he could. It's impossible for him to run out of cursed energy because the 6 size basically makes it so that his use of cursed energy is infinitesimally close to 0. So no matter what techniques he uses, his 6 size will split that energy usage pretty much infinitely until it's barely using up any of his cursed energy at all. It optimizes his cursed energy usage down to the atomic level to the point where he could use a cursed technique, domain expansion, or whatever, and he'll never run out of cursed energy. That's the power of the 6 eyes. That's the power of his eyes alone. It just turns him into like a super high-speed processor that is 110,000% efficient. And no one else can do that. Inumaki's right. Gojo-sensei would never run out of cursed energy. That's because his cursed energy efficiency is extraordinary, ain't it? Isn't it? That's because his cursed energy efficiency is extraordinary, isn't it? He controls consumption through a constant self-preservation, but that assumes regular functioning, right? I bet it'd be different if he was to consecutively open domains.
What about Sukuna?
He's like a god. He's like a god. He activates cursed techniques and switches between amplification and innate technique quickly. If Gojo didn't have 6 eyes, Sukuna would even best him in cursed energy efficiency. And then it comes back to Yuta.
He also has more overall cursed energy than I do. My hunch is twice or more. So it's not like they wouldn't open their domains due to the lack of cursed energy.
And then Momo speaks up.
Maybe nobody, including those two, knows what'll happen if their domains clash.
Yeah. And here it comes. Wait. That's something to think about. What'll happen if the domain expansion of the strongest sorcerer of today and the domain expansion of the strongest curse user in history were to clash against each other. And here it comes. Yo! We got a double domain expansion between Gojo and Sukuna! We're about to get Unlimited Void, Infinite Void versus Malevolent Shrine. Gojo prepares Infinite Void, and then Sukuna just goes infinite. They both go domain expansion, and a black sphere just erupts in the streets between them. And then it has Sukuna's Malevolent Shrine inside of Gojo's Infinite Void, and we get narration. The clash was even. Inside Gojo's barrier, the two can't miss commands overlapped, and he canceled each other out. They fought with both their domains open. If one takes heavy damage or one of their domains collapses, the other's guaranteed hit will immediately strike. So now we have reached ahead, because since they're so strong, their basically guaranteed hits have canceled each other out. So the guaranteed hits of Infinite Void can't touch Sukuna, but Sukuna's guaranteed hit of his Malevolent Shrine can't touch Gojo. So if either one of them suffers heavy damage, then they're left susceptible to the guaranteed hit. If one takes heavy damage, or one of their domains collapses, the other's guaranteed hit will immediately strike. That's an even match inside a barrier. For real? It can't be. And then it shows that stuff is getting destroyed. Stuff is getting destroyed outside of the domain expansion. But, because things are being torn apart on the outside, the effective range of Sukuna's domain reaches outside the exterior of Gojo's domain. Thus the domain's barrier. It's weak against attacks from outside! And it shows a crack in the domain expansion. And Sukuna's Malevolent Shrine wins out. And Sukuna is standing there, looking down and smiling at Gojo. And as he's looking, Sukuna's domain expansion broke through Gojo's. And as Gojo's looking, Gojo gets cut directly in the neck. And that's the end of the chapter. Wow. I was not expecting that. But this also does not surprise me. This is Sukuna, after all. His domain is not normal. He doesn't need an actual domain space in order for his domain expansion to work. Because the range of the domain expansion doesn't just take you to a separate void. It allows his domain expansion to operate in the regular world without the need to create a domain itself. It just extends his power, his domain expansion, out into the normal world, and not just a sphere of influence that he has control over. And since it has an extremely long range, it can go past Gojo's barrier. And in the process, it breaks through Gojo's barrier. It wins out the domain expansion struggle. And Gojo gets cut directly in the neck. Wow. Well, I was not expecting that. I was expecting a ton more exposition. Because we got everyone talking about, like, how's this going to work against Gojo? How's this going to work against Sukuna? Well, if he does this, well, if he does that. A whole bunch of going back and forth as everyone is trying to piece together just how this fight is going to go. And after both Gojo and Sukuna use domain expansion on each other, in the end, Gojo's barrier gets affected from the outside, and that allows Gojo to get cut in the neck. Now, the thing is, I can't say, like, this is the end of Gojo simply because this man has been stabbed in the head before. He's been physically stabbed in the head by a knife specifically meant to counter curse techniques. And this was during his fight with Toji Zenin. And that was at that moment that he perfected all of his techniques and unleashed Hollow Purple for the very first time. And Toji Zenin could not keep up with him. So my thing is, there's absolutely no way that Gojo is going down over this, because Gojo has been in that prison realm for God knows how long in terms of time. So you can't tell me that he hasn't figured out a way for it to make it so that even if he does get cut, he can just instantly heal himself with reverse curse technique. Because this man he's just using his eyes out in the open. He's not covering them anymore. So you can't tell me that this is the end of Gojo. It can't be. There's absolutely no way. I don't think it is. I just feel like this is the first time Gojo's been hurt. Actually, yeah, this is actually the first time that Gojo's been hurt. Was there someone who was par with Sukuna in the beginning? Was there someone who was who was on par with Sukuna in the beginning, who was powerful as Gojo back then? There were users of the Six Eyes and the Limitless, but Gojo's like the first one to be born with it in 400 years. And Sukuna has been around for like over 1,000. So we don't know if there was someone that opposed Sukuna in the past that wielded we don't know if there was someone in the past that opposed Sukuna that used both the Six Eyes and the Limitless at the same time. We don't know that. Toji hurt him. Yes, Toji hurt him. But it didn't last. Which is why I'm like, okay, Gojo's been hurt. This is the first time since Toji Zenin that Gojo's actually been hurt by somebody. This is the first time. Gojo's never been hurt except for when he encountered Toji Zenin. And Toji was using cursed tools to harm him. But this is why I come back to this, Fallen. I come back to the fact that he got stabbed in the head and multiple times over his legs. And he came back. And his techniques were perfected and beyond everything. Because he couldn't even do like curse technique reds. Because those were difficult for him. But after he got stabbed and killed by Toji, he reached like a level of enlightenment. And he was completely healed. And Toji couldn't do anything to him. Couldn't even touch him. He was left at Gojo's mercy. Which is why I'm thinking to myself, this seems like it's another situation where Gojo's been harmed for the first time in his life, apparently. But he may come back even stronger. That's just what I'm thinking. Because, remember, he's still under the effects of the curse technique amplification dance that Utahime used with him. And he's still, I don't know if it's expired, but I don't think that Gojo being cut through the neck, because I'm looking at the panel. What is that box shape on the first row on the shelf that's facing the camera? That is the wooden plaque that I got for Tears of the Kingdom. It's a wood. Actually, you know what? Let me get it. It's a wooden plaque that I got when I pre-ordered Tears of the Kingdom. I got like an arm sleeve as well. I got like an arm sleeve for I got like an arm sleeve that I haven't taken out the pack yet and haven't tried, but I also got a wooden plaque that went with Tears of the Kingdom. But I go back to this saying, like, this is not the first time that Gojo's been injured, and it seems like he's been down for the count. It's not the first time it seems like Gojo's been down for the count, and he's been stabbed in the head, and it's all like, and he just came back even fiercer than before. So, looking at this panel, I'm trying to make sure that Gojo being cut in the neck is not going completely through his head and around him, or if it's just blood shooting out of the side, and it's not just a pure cut that goes through his neck. Because if it does, and it's gone through his neck, I don't know. But apparently we are not going on break after this chapter. So we're just going to have to see next week. Overall, I really did enjoy this chapter. There was a whole bunch of talking at the beginning, but the last of it was basically domain expansions against the two most powerful sorcerers that exist in the world, even more than Kenjaku. Two of the most powerful sorcerers that exist in the world today, and Sukuna's domain winning out against Gojo's. So, being nosy, love the luxury in my room. There's still things I need to clean up and get rid of, stuff I need to turn over to Goodwill, so my room hasn't reached that luxury yet. I know when I get my own places, I'm definitely going to turn it into a luxury. But now we got to wonder, what is Gojo going to do after being the first... actually, Sukuna was the first person to get damaged in this fight. But now Gojo's been damaged, and his own domain expansion didn't last against Sukuna's domain. So now I was just wondering, like, what else does Gojo have up his sleeve that can counter Sukuna now that Sukuna's domain expansion is capable of overpowering his? Because the instant hit doesn't work when both their domains are going at the same time because they cancel each other out. But Sukuna's domain can still affect Gojo's domain from the outside, because Sukuna's domain is not confined to the inner world of a domain expansion itself. So there's a lot to think about this chapter, but I'm going to think about it later. I got to check in with my family and see what we're doing later on. Apparently we're going to eat someplace. But overall, yeah. A good day for One Piece, and an equally good day for Jujutsu. Now, mind you, I knew it. Jujutsu's chapter did not have me hollering and screaming as much as the last chapter of One Piece just did. But it was still a good chapter, and now I'm just wondering, where does Gojo go from here? Will we see the absolute limits of the limitless? Will we see brand new techniques from Gojo? Will Sukuna just resort to using his own techniques against Gojo, or will he start to mess with Gojo by using Megumi's 10 Shadows techniques against him? And maybe even make himself look more and more like Megumi, so Satoru Gojo is less likely to, fight him for real. There's a lot of questions I have in mind, but we're going to have to wait until next week to find out what those are. So, that's where I'm going to call it a session for today. Just wanted to get my reaction out of there. Going to check in on family. All I can say to everyone here is, hope you all enjoyed. Can't wait to see you all in my next video. And if you're new to the channel, well, if you enjoyed what you saw here today, I got to stop saying you're new to it. And if you're new to the channel, you guys already know. If you enjoyed what you saw here today, then like, because that really does help my channel. It may not seem like much, but just simply liking a video that I do really does go a long way in helping the channel. But like, subscribe, share this stream with everyone you know, because the more the merrier, and maybe even consider becoming a member, because I'm always looking forward to entertaining you. So have a fantastic day, and once again, as always, later, peoples!